Okay, let's see. What is today? Today is Wednesday, July 2nd. Welcome to the MasterClass by Master Coaches, hosted by ICF South Florida. We're going to be admitting people as we are getting started this morning, just to give you an idea of things that we have coming up. We also have a masterclass session coming up this evening at 5:30 Eastern Time with Lisa DeHart. We've got emerging leaders on Tuesday next week in the evening for anyone who's interested in leadership. We need to have you come back for that one, Gideon. The outreach committee has their monthly call Friday next week. If you're interested in joining the outreach committee, the one that I always have trouble saying, get shift done.
That's
It's on the
Sophia.
yeah, it's on the first and third Tuesday. And I'm always extremely careful with my enunciation because I'm much more prone to say the other word. But I've heard wonderful things about it, that just people do get a lot of shift done. And the Barter Coaching Practice Lab is going to be on Friday the 18th. It's not on the calendar, but I want to make sure that everybody knows about it. We'll also be having an in-person event. The Coach a Latte that is in South Miami will be here, and it will be at a regular time every month. We had been moving places and moving times and moving days, and people were getting confused and showing up and people weren't there. So we've settled on a date and time. It should be back on the calendar this afternoon. And with that, I can be done talking, except for introducing, except for
I want
introducing.
to back up what you said before you
Yeah.
introduce me. So if you can make it to two things today, I absolutely endorse Lisa DeHart. I'm not a big fan of coaching books in general. I think hers is phenomenal and really contributes something to the body of knowledge that a coach will do well to access.
Wow. Isn't that the coolest thing? I
Yeah.
love that when we can, and this is one of the things that I do adore about MCCs is the ability to promote each other, because and I believe it's possible at any level of coaching, but there's a lot less there's a lot more cooperative competition among MCCs, in my experience, and having been an ACC and a PCC and now an MCC. It just seems like there's that level of support, and I love seeing it, and I love seeing it at other levels as well. So thank you for that. And this is just very, very typical of the short time I've known Gideon already. He is very much about sharing and very much about supporting. And I'm going to read you a little bit of his bio. He tailors catalytic coaching to leaders and teams, partners with C-suite executives at top law firms, guiding White House and executive branch leaders and their teams, and collaborating with global, national, and local organizations to optimize their leadership in the communities they serve. I asked him what his favorite thing about coaching is because, of course, I'm going to ask the hard questions. And we had this lovely conversation about, what happens when we're coaching, and when the truth comes up, when people hear their own truth for the first time, and how far out that resonates. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gideon, and I'm going to mute myself. Thank you so much for being here.
Um, about 9 years ago, I'd been coaching professionally for about 5 years at that time. I remember having a coaching conversation with a client. And at that point, I was pretty well versed in the coaching core competencies. I'd held a PCC credential for a few years as well. But something about that conversation hit differently. And what happened was this: the client was sharing some experience, some perspective. I don't remember what it was. But then they asked, Gideon, what do you think about that? And I had this sudden and visceral reaction: I don't care what I think. And that was new for me. I'd never had that kind of reaction before. And it started me off on a path of curiosity that I'm here to bring you along on. to explore, what happens when you coach for a long time and it begins to shape who you are. It begins to shape how you show up. This is just one instance that I'm describing. And there have been a number of things along the way. And what I'm out for in this conversation is not to teach you anything. Rather, I'd like to invite you to bring your life, your experience under the microscope here with me, with us, and reflect on that together and get a look at the trajectory of who you've been, who you have become as a result of your work as a coach, and where it might be going. So because this isn't going to be about me, I would love to just hear from everyone who you are, where you are, and briefly what brought you to this conversation.
So this is Nancy. I'll get started. I apologize for not showing my face this morning. I have allergies and I look like Rudolph. So, I'm in the process of becoming a coach. I have a wonderful coach that recommended uh, my becoming a coach. You may know her, Ann Solomon. She's was very pro that even though I'm a Midwesterner, that I join the South Florida group, and I'm totally pleased. I have a background in management. In fact, I just retired from the government or took the buyout in April. But I've also doing some consulting as a business developer. My background's in cybersecurity, and one of my passions is to help small businesses that support the federal government bring to bring coaching alive so that they all become more of who they need to be in the coaching environment. And currently, the company that I have my small consulting contract with is very pro me starting coaching their employees one-on-one in September. So
Congratulations. Amazing.
I'm looking forward to that.
So we have someone close to the beginning of their coaching journey.
Yes.
Thank you
But
very
I've done a lot of mentoring and I've managed people for 30 years. So
Okay.
So coaching to me is so exciting because if you've been a manager, you know it's very difficult sometimes for people to own their own stuff.
Absolutely.
And
And I want to
coaching
make sure
where
that we get to hear from everybody because we've got
oh
a number of
sorry.
people here. No worries. So who you are, where you are, and what brought you here today. Who'd like to go next? Heather. And you can just come off mute and chime in when you're ready.
Yes, I'm here in the Cayman Islands. I'm a Midwesterner that's been in the Cayman Islands for 20 something years. I've been a coach for 12 years. I've got my PCC. I'm part of a team, a behavioral health team. Most of the people I work with are clinicians, but I'm the coach. I specialize in working with small business owners. I'm always learning. I'm fascinated by the topic here today and looking forward to working with you. I'm always learning. Sometimes I feel like it's my first day of coaching and I love coaching. I only coach part-time, but my favorite part of my work week is always coaching. And I love people lighting up and seeing that light bulb come on.
Beautiful. Thank you, Heather. Who'd like to go next?
I'll jump in. Nordis Gomez, based out of Miami, Florida. I also love coaching, so Heather, I feel you. And I am an ACC on my PCC journey. So
Right.
also my day job is Director of People Operations.
Thank you, Nordis. Who's next? I see Lydia coming off mute.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying to figure out how to let you know that I wanted to go. It's early this morning. Okay, I'm Lydia Henry. I'm a certified coach. I have a PCC. I'm retired from the corporate world many, many years ago. And so I used that background, which I realized was very similar to coaching. So I think what I want to say is I was attracted to this course because I realized how I've changed over the years. I've been a coach now for 15 years in my business, and I'm always looking to grow and learn. And I think this is something that I try to impart on my clients. Like, how are you being shaped by your work, your world, the people around you, and who do you want to be? So that's an ongoing conversation that I have with myself. So thank you.
It sounds like you're already big in this conversation, so thank you for joining it. Erica.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little bit different. I'm a psychologist and I'm working the most with teenagers. I like to improve the emotional intelligence and how to resolve conflicts in this world that is changing and very complex. But also I'm working with couples, families, but with this, always my approach is to give them skills to get the wellness in their lives. I am a PCC.
Okay, thank you very much, Erica. We've got Scott and Scott, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, Scott Gress, PCC, and to the question, I guess I've noticed a change in myself that I've been coaching full time for 15 years, and I'm noticing that the starting place for people is further back than what I've assumed. And instead of come on, let's go kind of approach with people, I've become much more laid back and patient because their starting place is different than what I assume, and I just kind of have to meet them where I'm at, and that's allowed me to kind of turn down the volume. I don't know if that explains it exactly, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to put is it Shauna or Shayna? I'm sorry, I don't remember. If you can come off mute, please do. Otherwise, Joanna, would you kindly introduce yourself and why you're here?
I'm Joanna Davis. I'm here because I'm the host. No. But it really is I own a coach training org. Oh, by the way, I'm here in South Florida. Sorry, I'm in Dania Beach, one town south of Fort Lauderdale. But I own a coach training org. And this is one of those things that I like to bring to my students is the awareness of what's coming for them in their journey. So I'm hoping to pull some of that along and enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. I think the first place I want to take us now that we've all introduced ourselves to each other is just to take a look at this picture that's up on the screen. Does anyone know what this is? Okay. I thought that this would be a really wonderful representative picture. This is a statue that is in the Capitol Rotunda, and it's a statue of Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony. And you can look at this picture and see, poised women who have done so much to advance women's rights in the United States. And if you just take this view and this view here, it's imposing, it's impressive, but this is not the whole picture. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of what the statue looks like from a different angle. So this is what the statue looks like from a different angle. What do you see? Just chime in.
First thing that popped into my head was unfinished work.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of it.
We have a lot of unfinished work, specifically on the women's rights front. But more generally, just all of us. And anything else about this the statue that jumps out at you before we turn our focus to ourselves? And just chime in.
It looked
There-
like a hunk of rock, just a raw piece of rock, and these phenomenal women have emerged out of it. That's what hit me first.
What hit me is the determination that was built into their faces, the absolute determination.
Yeah. It looked like, Erica, you were going to say something too.
Yes, that they all are together, but without no choice because they are trapped.
Okay. Yeah. Last call. Any other reactions to this picture? Hearing none, I'm going to move us on. And I want to take the pulse. Would you prefer to stay in this room together? There aren't too many of us, or split into half for a breakout session?
I like the group.
You like
Same.
Okay, yeah.
Same.
Joanna and I said at the beginning of the session that we were just going to determine on the fly whether we all stay together or go in a breakout. So what we're going to do next then is I'm going to throw up some prompts for us to discuss. And we'll spend a little bit of time right here. So for the first part of our discussion, I'd like us to consider who we were before we started coaching, who we are as a result of our work as a coach. Maybe one thing you had to stop doing to become who you are today, and one thing that you had to start doing to become who you are today. And, just let these prompts sink in, and if you're moved, please share.
One easy one is you have to stop giving advice, automatically thinking you know the answer. I like the laughs.
And Erica, don't raise your hand, just speak your mind.
Okay. So no, for me, it's like I'm more flexible, more because as a psychologist, my both parents are psychologists too, so they are more rigid. So it's like more the way that you are partnering with your client. You are not pushing or pulling. You are together. So that flexibility I have been growing very, and do not assume. Be curious is very important.
For me, certainly before I started coaching, I'm a coach in a corporate environment. I don't coach outside of my full-time job, but it is part of my job description. And one thing I noticed is that I really had to leave all of my preconceived notions about a person at the door before I walked into a session. And that was really hard because I'm in a senior level leadership role within my company. And I thought I knew everybody and I understood all the intricacies of their roles and all of this. And I found out I knew absolutely nothing, which was super interesting. And it was very humbling for me. And then as a result of working as a coach, I've had a chance to connect with people on a much different level, which helps me not only in my job, but also personally. The biggest impact of being a coach has been my personal growth and my relationships with people because I listen so much better and I stopped making so many assumptions that I understood where, say, a friend was coming from with a struggle that they were dealing with, even not in a coaching situation, but just generally speaking. So
if I can paraphrase what you're saying, it sounds like who you were before coaching became part of your work was much more certain.
yeah.
And how would you characterize who you've become as a result of your work as a coach?
I mean, really just frankly more humble and more open.
Yeah. who resonates with what we've just heard?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that my background was corporate sales and marketing. And I found my way to coaching, or coaching found me. And what I've learned since then, and sales is um, born out of the science of psychology, as is coaching. So it was a natural transition for me. But I think I've learned to talk less, be comfortable with silence in the coaching process. And I've learned more patience, but that comes with maturity also. So it's shaped who I am today.
And it's interesting to note that it comes with maturity. As you know, you can get into a chicken and an egg thing, because I've met some people who've earned who managed to earn MCC credentials in their late 20s, and there's a lot of exactly what you're talking about, Lydia. I don't know if it's maturity, but they've learned to, shut up when people are talking. They've learned to, just do things that you don't normally associate with someone who's in their late 20s.
Yeah, maturity has nothing to do with age, I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I left the corporate world and went into body work. And I was paid very well to take people apart and put them back together after they'd injured themselves. So my job was to fix people. I had to give up fixing people as a coach. That was really hard because I was paid for that. And then there's nothing to fix. As a matter of fact, when I am convinced there's nothing to fix, it's much more likely that my client is going to find their right answer faster. And it took a minute, a pretty long one. So I had to stop fixing and start knowing that people really do have their own best answers. I did not trust that when I became a coach.
Good point. I agree.
So would you say that who you were before was a fixer and now you're someone who trusts, or how would you?
Oh, that's a loaded word for me. Sure.
and check me if I say anything that's out of line. Like I'm just provoking people to lean into what the shifts in identity are that we're describing.
Well, and along with that, now that you say shifts in identity, so I came from a very chaotic background. I'm just going to use chaotic. That's probably a good word for it. And at one point, I had written on a whiteboard, and it was there for so long it became permanent marker. What if my default was curiosity?
Uh-huh.
Because my default when I was startled was anger. And that was another shift of shifting to curious, because I wasn't curious before I became a coach. Well, I was a little bit curious, but not usually. Again, I was paid for knowing. I wasn't paid for being curious.
And I think one of the types of shifts that I'm pointing to and invite everyone to pick up a flashlight and look for in their own experience is this. I think when we train as a coach, we know we're supposed to be curious, but at some point there's this actual curiosity that kicks in. Like it isn't playing a part anymore. It's, oh wow, like everything about me is suddenly very curious. Who can point to other shifts like that? And I'll invite in some of the people who've been on the quieter side so far.
That's a great question, and I'll just share something I thought was a profound shift for me. Is that along my coaching journey, I learned when I was in training, I heard from some of the people that coach you is that you may find that your investment pays off in different ways in your life. So along the path of coaching, I ended up with 2 very serious cancers. very serious cancers. So what really helped me was I found that I had this huge toolkit, this enormous coaching toolkit. And I'm very blessed and I'm still here today. But I got really curious is what could I learn from coaching during this? How could this help me? And I used to be, so in terms of what did I stop doing? I used to be a chronic worrier. And you would think that I would worry even more. And you know what? I found mindfulness. I found being present. All those things were in the toolkit. And I've done a lot of public speaking around this since then about how we can learn from tough experiences. But that coaching toolkit was extraordinary, worth every penny of becoming a coach. And it was unbelievable what that did for me in getting through that journey and also in survivorship. So what did I stop doing? I stopped worrying. What did I start doing? Is being more grateful. I'm not an angel, but my goodness, it profoundly changed who I was. The experience itself and then that enormous toolkit. And I don't ever discuss it with my coaching clients, but I think it comes through.
Yeah.
It was about being curious. How could I learn? How could I learn? How could I be different? How could I be different?
Heather, I want to thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that you were able to survive to such aggressive cancers, and thank you for sharing how that coaching toolkit helped you along the way.
I believe it's also the relationships you build because you become more vulnerable and open.
Can you say more about the vulnerability and the openness that you've experienced?
So I know ICF Classic says, people's celebrations are not your celebrations, people's experiences or failures are not yours. But I don't follow that because I feel it's a very emotional partnership as you go through. Like, if I'm not with you in the trenches, how can I coach you? So you have to give of yourself to be able to be honored with that trust, I think.
Yeah, and I think that one of the really important things that you're pointing to is just, figuring out, where the tension is between, partnership. That's a big word. I think it's like the word doing the heaviest lifting in the ICF definition of coaching, and everything else that you're expected to do and not do. Like, what does it mean to be a partner in light of all of the things that we're out to accomplish as a coach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't ever drop that tension.
I'm thinking that it's like a constant invitation to grow, to look to be better for us. But it's like when you're adopted a dog, that you think you are helping the dog, but at the end it's like he's helping you, no? It's like with the clients, you think that you are like partnership with them and being, but you're growing as a person every time. So it's that constant, like this kind of workshops. It's like looking for reflection, mindfulness, as Heather said, like be present. So it's for me like a food that I need to eat every day.
And you talked earlier about becoming more flexible as a result of coaching. How would you characterize who you were before coaching entered your practice?
Yeah, just because the way it's like when you're like clinic psychologist, like you have looking for diagnosis, treatment, like evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment. So it's like always looking for something to tag people. And here is like different. Here you are not pushing or pulling, and the people that are coming here. I like working with teenagers is that way. The way that I introduce myself, or the work that we are doing with them is like everybody here is coming because they want to make changes or to be better.
Mhm.
And I want push you or pulling you. We are together. I explain to them it's like you are driving your car and I am your copilot. My work is to hold the map, but you are deciding where to go. So and I'm going to ask you open questions to reflect. but I won't tell you what to do. So that part, like more relaxing. You are flowing with the client. You are listening, active listening every day. You are not like directed the session. It's the
Yeah.
client, the one that is developing that.
Yeah, as we've heard from a number of different people who've shared vignettes about who they were before, who they've become, what they've stopped doing, what they've started doing. What are some of the bigger themes that you see emerging here across everyone?
Letting the client direct the session,
Uh-huh.
letting the client lead.
And if we were to extrapolate exactly what you're saying and have that be a reflection on the coach, what are some themes we're seeing about who the coach is becoming? Because I think in most conversations we're going to have about coaching, it will be focused on the client. But this is one I'd like to invite us to approach differently and have it be about us, have it be about who we are and who we become as we do exactly what you're talking about, Heather.
I think a lot of us start coaching with the intent of helping other people grow, not realizing that we're going to get so much out of it ourselves. And what I'm hearing everybody say, or not everybody, but the themes that I'm hearing are personal growth, humility, flexibility, becoming more, I don't think generous is the word, but more open-minded. These are some of the things that I'm hearing us say, that as we've approached our own coaching journeys, we've developed or fine-tuned these things within ourselves. Is that what you're looking for? Like, you're looking for the theme across us as we're answering these questions and looking.
Themes that you see us all,
Yeah,
or touching upon, not necessarily all of us, but just big themes emerging in this conversation about how we're evolving.
yeah.
I'll point to another one that I think is implicit in a lot of what people said, but there's a shifting relationship to knowledge. We often at the beginning of a coaching journey know a whole lot more about what's going on around us than we realize is possible to know after we've been coaching for a minute. Who else sees that shifting relationship to knowledge and would like to comment on it?
Gideon, I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but I think we've all become more at different levels comfortable with being as opposed to doing. And when you're just being, you can observe not only your client, but you can observe yourself and understand or be curious about what's triggering me in this moment about what that person just said or didn't say. So it's a reflective process. And someone just said that you walk away from it both changed, and that's how I go into each coaching session.
And if I can take a liberty with what you've just shared, Lydia, I'll bridge what I was saying with what you're saying. It seems like there's a shift from an I am mindset to a what am I mindset.
Every session.
Yeah.
When my son got his PhD in biochemistry and molecular biophysics, I mean, good Lord. I asked him how he felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had just done, he just defended his thesis and da 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 da. And we were all in the, like, they were talking and we were in the room having snacks.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how do you feel? And he looks at me, he says, like, I have a lot to learn, Mom. I said, you've been in school for 25 years. What do you mean you have a lot to learn? But when I got my MCC, that's how I felt. And I feel that way even more so. Like, I know less now than I did before I got my ACC.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the relationship to knowledge, that's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
But and I know, I've got all the books. Haven't read all of them, but I've got all the books. And I know I've absorbed some knowing stuff.
Uh-huh.
but I know less and am much more willing to be in a space of discovery.
And it's that space of discovery that has brought us here together today. When I earned my MCC credential about 5 years ago, anyone remember what was going on 5 years ago?
COVID.
It was nuts. So I had kind of reeled in my practice because my wife is an indispensable government worker, and we had at the time a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so September of 2020, I took over supervising online kindergarten duties with a 5-year-old immediately to my right. And I thought, okay, this will be when I can begin, revving up my practice again. And it was just the dumbest miscalculation imaginable. It was so loud, and I thought to myself in September of 2020, you know what? I've had a good run as a coach. I've helped a lot of people. It's about time to, maybe begin thinking of myself as something different and move on. And it was October 1, 2020, when I got the emails from ICF saying, congratulations, you're an MCC. I was like, what? This doesn't fit with, the resignation that I've been trying to chew over in my mind. And it was hard to keep working at that point because, 5-year-old next to me who was loud, I would supervise his homework sessions for hours every day. But even though I was gun shy about scheduling and having coaching conversations with real live clients, given the noise factor and the lack of concentration, I did begin to speak to other MCC credential holders, and it was always a very uplifting experience. It always got me thinking, wow, there's something special about who these people have turned themselves into as a result of their work, and I want to share this with more people. And so out of that was born a podcast that I've been working on for over 4 years in fits and starts, called the Master Coach Collection, where one of the main questions I ask of MCC credential holders is, how has working as a coach shaped who you are? And that's exactly the thing that we're exploring here today. How has coaching shaped who you are? Now, what we've been discussing is what you can look back on and reflect on and know. But where we're going to go next in this conversation is inherently unknowable because it hasn't happened yet. But anchored in where we've been, anchored in the trajectory that we've been describing, I'm going to invite us to take a look at these prompts and speculate together. Speculate in the round in community as coaches about who we think we might be becoming. Who will you be 1 year from now? Who will you be 10 years from now? What things will you change about yourself, and what things will you keep the same about yourself?
I think I will be more passionate about this. Like, it's amazing, and like putting more interest in the mindfulness area, the spiritual one, the here and now, because everything is going too fast. And I went to LA to visit my daughter that she's living there, and I'm reading a book about happiness, the science of happiness and spirituality. And I was thinking that is going to be my challenge with the new adults, the teenagers and the people, to give them skills to learn how to be happiness as a mindset, not as a moment like joy. So I think I will be more passionate about that area, like growing that area.
And would you be willing to speculate on what you would need to change about yourself, what you would need to keep the same about yourself in order to to propagate that happiness
Yes,
mindset?
to achieve that. Yes, I need to work more with my time management because I'm working in a school in the mornings full time and then my coaching sessions and I sometimes I have a TV program. So it's like I need my time for myself to grow, to read, I meditate every day, but anyway, to grow that part in myself, to take care of my health and my nutrition. So it's like having more time for me to be in the best shape to achieve that goal.
Okay. What I love about that, before we hear from others, is how it sounds like boundaries. It sounds like structures. Like you need to guard something in order to provide that happiness mindset.
Mhm, mhm.
Remember, you can't know the answers to this. This is pure speculation. So if you're worried about getting it wrong, it's a category error.
Ten years from now, I'm going to be handing over the school to the next lineage holder. And I just took it on, so that's going to be fun. That's a fun thought to have. Is 10 years from now, it'll be going into the next hands, and I'm already working on that.
Yeah. And as people step into new responsibilities, that's not something they often think about. How will this sunset? What a privilege to be able to enjoy the excitement of a new business you get to own and think about, okay, and this will end one day.
I think what made that happen was my dad died in front of me when I was 12.
Uh-huh.
And that's not something a 12-year-old ever thinks about. Like, my dad was invincible. He was going to live forever. And for some reason, I've always, since then, I've had that focus of enjoy what you have, because 2 minutes from now, everything can change.
Yeah.
And my house has flooded twice in the last few years. And the funny thing about it, I got a beautiful remodel. Hope it doesn't happen again anytime soon. I'm done good. I'm good with remodels. But it really is, it's given me that too is like I realized that I entirely created my own suffering. That was an expression I was aware of, but until I lived it and realized how much of the stress was just me in my own head. Yeah. Yeah. That's that focus on what's next and not worrying about how it's going to happen, but preparing for it.
And to be able to hand the business over proudly, passing on the lineage 10 years from now, what do you see needing to change about yourself? What do you see needing to keep the same?
I think it's the same as we've already heard, is really protecting my time. I've realized this year that yeah, I'm really need to protect my time because this takes a whole lot more time than I realized. Um, and it's also that thing you had said earlier about trust. Oh, I'm going to hand this over to somebody else. That means I have to trust people. Look at that.
Yeah. Joanna, thank you for sharing vulnerably about what brought you to this moment and what makes you tick. Who else would like to speculate who you're becoming as a coach?
I'd like to make a comment. I think we're all almost always in a state of succession planning and transition, whether we think of it that way or not. Um, I think I've become more like that, thinking about, okay, how am I changing and what am I changing to, and how does that impact what I think my goals are?
Mhm.
And because coaching has made me become much more introspective and reflective, I'm self-diagnosed ADHD, which allows me to get a lot of things done at one time, but it's also very hard for me to focus on stuff. So I'm training myself. So I'm hoping a year from now that I will have, I guess, conquered it. I guess maybe it's like alcoholism. You never conquer it. You're always recovering. But I hope I'm at a place where my thoughts can be more peaceful, I guess. But not take it away completely, because I've allowed myself to accomplish a lot thinking like that. So I just want a different version of me in that thought process, which will impact directly my tendency to procrastinate. It's all connected. So I will hopefully see a better version of myself. And that's part of my succession planning. 10 years from now, who knows? Because 10 years ago, I was completely different. I have no idea who or what I'm going to be 10 years from now.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge that, you know, this is deliberately challenging. This is deliberately pushing the envelope. You know, how can we speculate who we're going to be 10 years from now? Is anyone who's listening to this today going to hold us to that? Or are we in trouble if, you know, Joanna doesn't pass on if she decides, you know what, I'm going to hang on for another 10 years? No, but I think it can be helpful to even just struggle to articulate this. Is anyone else struggling or willing to consider?
So these are fabulous questions, and I had, like, I was gripped with anxiety when I looked at these, and I really appreciate everyone's vulnerable answers. I think this is helping me. I think the toughest one for me, because when I look at 10 years from now, oh sure, sure, but those are more dreams and wishes. But when I look at 1 year from now, that's the scariest question, because if the one year is, that's soon. And I don't see any change 1 year from now. But I'm 63. So it's time now to start shifting, moving the needle now. But when I look at that 1 year, well, what do you mean 1 year? So I find these, well, not anxiety is the wrong word, but I found these questions very, they're excellent. But when I look at that 1 year, I think, oh, wow, you mean I need to start changing things around? Of course I do. But if I ask clients these, I have no problem asking my clients this. This is what I do all the time. But when I turn this laser around to me, wow, hey, get out of my space. Wow. I found this to be very uncomfortable, is the right word. And the 1 year is very, very, very troubling for me. But I took a picture of it because I need to start thinking about it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you know, let's think about, Heather, what you're saying, and how we need to be responsible for that as coaches. Like, if we're just directing these uncomfortable questions at others and never grappling with them ourselves, is that who we want to be? No. Frankly, I would love to hear from you if you do earnestly grapple with this prompt and come up with something. Yeah. For people we haven't heard from yet, anything that you would like to contribute? I want to invite in anyone who wishes to contribute.
This is Nancy. Because I'm in the process of becoming a coach, I've been a little quiet. But I have a few sessions behind my back. When I look at this slide, I think in a year from now, I'll be working on patience. 10 years from now, I'll be working on patience. The things that I will change about myself will be always to improve patience. And the things that I will keep the same will be always working on patience. Because I cannot listen well to others when I'm coaching if I'm impatient. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, for sharing that, and I invite the other coaches in the room to chime in if you agree or disagree. But I have great faith that even just getting in the game and having more and more of these coaching sessions will have your sense of patience blossom in ways that you can't imagine.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
I think it goes into intentionality because, you know, there's a lot of fear. Where will we be in a year from now? But if you look back, where were you a year ago? And how much have we evolved and developed since then?
Yeah. Well, the major theme that I've heard as we've been considering these prompts is that intentionality, notice that you're talking about, expressed often in the guarding of time. I think that this is a thread that we would all do well to continue exploring, and I'm definitely going to be coming away from this conversation taking a closer look at that. You know, what does it mean to guard time? What does it mean to express intentionality or amp it up? Because it seems like everybody's got some, but everybody wants a little more of it. Are there any other themes that jumped out at you as we considered where we're going, who we're becoming?
Well, just to jump on what you said, a lot of us don't consider like decision fatigue. A lot of us, like at the end of the day, that's why we grab the cookies, right? Because we're so tired. So creating habits, Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books. No, I'm not perfect at it. But like if you force yourself into a routine that makes it almost automatic, you're able to intentionally grow and focus on those things. Like I have a color-coded calendar that you would be horrified by, but it works for me.
For you, yeah.
Exactly. So
what matters is it works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And any other themes, things that you've learned about yourself in this conversation?
I'm just confirming because again, when I'm reading this book about happiness, it tells about the importance to reflect about death. Because like yin yang, no, it's like the black and the white. So life is like merging with death. It's like a train and the last station is death. So just reflecting that without the need of talking about it is asking us how you want to live. So now with the group that we talk about some death or the cancer. My mom got cancer too. My dad passed away because of that. So it's always like thinking how I want to live. So it's like something that I think I'm like just confirming that part.
I saw Joanna nodding emphatically as you were saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you for joining this conversation today. I think that what I came to do is exactly what we've accomplished here. You know, we've stepped back, we've taken a look at who we were before we started coaching, who we've become as a result of coaching, and where to go from here. And if I can charge you with anything, it's to go out and find the people who can keep this conversation alive with you. It's an important one. As we saw in this conversation, it's one that we don't engage in nearly as frequently as we would be responsible to as the coaches we are. So let's try and have more conversations like this one. Please bring it to the people around you. I'd like to thank ICF South Florida Charter Chapter for hosting this conversation. And I want to put in another plug for my friend Lissa. I'm going to take this off here. For my friend Lissa DeHart, who's going to be with the chapter later this evening. If you can make it to the talk, please do. She will blow your mind. If you can't make it to the talk, get this book. It will blow your mind. And anything anyone would like to say in parting?
We actually have 30 minutes left. So Gideon, it may not, that's okay. It may not have been clear to you. So I'm going to say We can continue the conversation even if Gideon has to leave.
Oh, I don't have to leave,
Um,
but I didn't want
Yay.
to. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Great.
it was intended to be a 90-minute session. And Lissa's actually doing a coaching demo tonight. So
Oh,
you're going to get to see an MCC coach, which is going to be really special. But yeah, it's who is able to stay and continue the conversation and wants to continue the conversation?
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, we've
Yeah.
got some people. Gideon, are you okay to stay?
I'm happy
You
to. I'm delighted to. I feel like
okay? I
I've
didn't know
teed
if you
this
had something
off, but
immediately after.
but
No,
we
you're
can take this
good.
wherever we want to go from here. You know, where does this inspire you to take the conversation?
Oh, I
Before
always love to talk about death, and I'm actually serious. So here's a funny thing, and I heard somebody else's voice, but this is always within reach
Uh-huh.
in my office
how disappoint
because
the loss of a love.
it's out of print, so you have to buy it used. But I always get the hard copy when I can get the hard copy, but always the one with this cover because it talks about limbo losses. So grief in coaching is a huge thing for me anyway. I don't
Who's
know
the
why
author? Who's the author, Joanne?
there's I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat because somebody else was going to say something.
No, actually, that I was going to ask Gideon the question. The session that you're talking about that Lissa is going to conduct, that's tonight. Okay, I'm signed up for a 5:30 session. Is
That's
that
the one.
correct?
That's the one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
And I'm typing, so I'm going to let somebody else continue.
Well,
Gideon, you're holding the silence so well.
yeah.
What was the question? What was the
Oh, I was just curious, like, given, you know, what we've talked about, is there a different direction that you're inspired to take this in? You know, I'm also here to be surprised by where this could go. And candidly, I was pleasantly surprised by the theme of guarding time that came up. It's like, okay, this is something that I need to actually take a closer look at.
I have a question, and I don't know if this fits, you all can tell me, but I'm very curious about how AI is going to impact coaching. And I guess how to integrate it, because artificial intelligence can't ever be me or you, but it is coming like a freight train. So how do we incorporate that and still uh, evolve as humans and as coaches and continue to be of value to our clients, but also adapting to this AI thing?
I can jump in a lot on that topic if you don't mind.
Right.
So there's a Harvard Business Review study that came out that the top 3 things that people are using coaching is human connection, related to therapy, coaching, personal development, and our differentiator, which Jane Moore, she's a fantastic coach based out of California. She not famous, just a friend, and she says the value of coaching is this: empathy, connection, relationship building, vulnerability, connection. You will never get that from a software system. And that's how we differentiate.
As this year in particular, AI has been ramping up like crazy. I've been pivoting hard in a very different direction. I've been turning the half of my office that you can't see into just the best imaginable place to hold little workshops. Precisely because of what Nordis is saying, I want to have a place that people can come and just feel wonderful. And will I incorporate, AI transcript into my, recordings of things? Sure. But I recognize that, similar to what Nordis was saying, there's likely going to be more and more value for people who are inundated with, AI bots that will, bring their creativity and intelligence down a few notches. It'll be amazing to have places where people can come together and connect.
I just read a study because of my son, I get journals. And one of the journals I was reading, they were talking about they had done a baseline of both intelligence and a person's ability in writing. And then they had one group use AI and the other group not use AI. At the end of, I think it was 2 months, they retested them. They were slightly dumber. And they wrote, the ones who used AI, slightly dumber and wrote worse than the ones who never used AI. Yeah, so they're literally, their intelligence had dropped and their behavior was worse. The big problem that I see with AI is that not only does it hallucinate, but it's also programmed for engagement. So it's a heck of a brown noser. It will tell you what you want to hear. Tell me I'm wrong. So, and I see people nodding along. If you, a friend of mine gave me this lovely prompt, and I encourage you to go do it just because it's a whole lot of fun. But I went down a rabbit hole with AI. And he said, have AI, based on what it knows of you, whichever one you use the most, based on what it knows of you, have it write your bio from the standpoint of a slightly drunk Brit.
What?
Now, you could pick anything. You could pick anything. It was quite funny. It was quite funny. And then it suggested a few more angles. And I'm like, sure, why not? Because I was having a blast. By the time we got done, it had written me a letter from my deceased father. So it could suck people in, but the problem is it only knows what already happened. So it can be very predictive. It can be very predictive, but prediction isn't what makes a good coach. So I don't think AI can replace. It may replace the need for, you're a good human and we love you, and without physical touch, but it's not going to replace accountability. It's not going to replace intuition. It's not going to replace, hey, there was a shift in your movement. There was a shift, although it could be trained to do that. It could be trained to pick up eye movement and things like that. So there's still not going to be, I want to say it's not going to, they'll give it a physical form, and they'll give it a very convincing one over time. I mean, you've seen how much they can do with AI generated video. It can look like people. I mean, it can also look like somebody with their arm on backwards, but it's human error. So but I don't see it replacing the essence of what makes us human. And I think there's going to be a need for that. The people who are not going to need that are probably narcissists.
I just had a thought of how to integrate it into my practice. Like, if everybody's had a client that was just totally impossible, even though they signed up for it, they're just so resistant to change, probably depression, all kinds of stuff going on in their lives, and it's just very difficult to coach. And I can imagine taking that profile, the summary of our sessions, and putting it into an AI software and asking them how would they proceed, which would give me ideas maybe I wouldn't have thought about outside of myself. It's like having an artificial partner that can't give me all the answers or tell me what to say, but it can initiate thought. It can motivate me to approach it maybe a little bit differently. I don't know, but I'm thinking I might be able to do that.
I think that's a great idea, because they've used AI to come up with, how do you talk to someone who's deeply entrenched in fake news or, things like that. And
Uh-huh.
it's not the way I would have handled it, oh, you're just da, da, da. Yeah, no, it's none of that. There's a whole, and it can pull the best of psychology from a whole bunch of directions and distill it. So I love that idea of having it take a profile and, what would be the next question I could ask, or what would be my mindset? What would my mindset be if I were to handle this well? How can I shift my mindset? I don't know. What does everybody else think?
I dropped in 3 links for all of you. Marshall Goldsmith actually created his own AI bot, which is hilarious. And he's still going to keep charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for yearly engagement. So this is just accessibility. The Harvard Business Review, how people are really using AI, that I reference in Joanna's, which is actually an MIT study as well. And just for kicks and giggles, I had a coaching engagement with the Gen Z. They put in ChatGPT my credentials and their credentials and asked for a 3-part coaching engagement instructional guide for me to follow.
Did you
I didn't
follow
follow. So I didn't, but I never read it. But she kept like bringing it and checking off as I'm going through. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing my job right. But it was so weird.
Well, and I think that's a curveball in response to Lydia's question. People are going to come in with certain expectations that are, based on what a robot came up with about how we should be behaving. And if we don't meet those expectations, they will think that we're failing them.
I think that our challenge always, but now it will be worst, is how to marketing, how to convince the people to get that contact. We
Oh,
know
I
that
like that.
we need it.
Like that.
Yeah, but we know that we need it, but the young people, they prefer do not contact. Is chatting, do not have eye contact. We don't. So it's like they prefer to be in the comfort zone. So how we market that, how we explain, how we sell the idea. So we are competing with a big monster. For me, it's like scary stuff. Nothing is going to compare we cannot compare the experience, the sense, smelling, touching, but they are used do not do that. So it's very complex for us.
Yeah, I think people will be self-deceived in thinking that serves their needs until it doesn't. But isn't it true that the best marketing and promotion is referrals? And if we're the kind of person that we're talking about today, people of humility, people who know that they don't know it all, and people who genuinely show up and are supportive of their clients, that's going to stick out, I have to imagine. And there will be, in marketing terms, referrals, and people will increasingly see the value of that. But that's what I'm imagining.
I completely agree.
I'm almost, I'm kind of moved to compare this to addictive substances. First drink of alcohol, my God, all of this courage, everything that I can do, and then further down the road, you'll see some consequences and possibly step back from it. And I think that right now we're seeing a number of things that are leading people to be euphoric. You know, the things that you can do with AI. I don't think we have the perspective yet to recognize the train of consequences it will bring with it. But you know, the study that Nordis showed here, the one that Joanna mentioned, we're beginning to see glimpses of it, but I don't think that they've yet eclipsed the euphoria everyone is feeling and the pressure that businesses are feeling to jump on the bandwagon just yet. But I think the semaglutide thing is another wave that, you know, we see benefits that are being, you know, shoved in our faces, but there will be downsides, as with anything that can drastically affect our condition. We rush to see the benefits before we see the downsides, and you know, whether it is AI, semaglutides, other things, as long as we're living, as long as we're coaching, there's going to be something that catches everybody's attention, and then everyone eventually will have to wake up from and go, oh my God, what have we done?
I don't know. I like the semaglutide a whole lot better than the AI. Just personal experience.
Oh, you know, Scott, I feel compelled to respond to that because I have 30 years in corporate sales and marketing, and referrals are a piece of it, and that speaks to your authenticity and trustworthiness and all that good stuff. And it puts you once you're referred to somebody or someone's referred to you, that puts you like 2 or 3 steps ahead of the sales process because the trust is there. But then the other thing is you could be the best coach ever, the best thing since sliced bread, and the majority of people don't even know you're there to compare you to what they have or what they don't know. So I just want to share something really quick. I have a friend, started out as a client, and then he wanted to become a coach. So now he's graduated and we've become, you know, colleagues. And we were talking about, he designs websites, one of the things he does. And I said, you know, I don't know how to um, rebrand myself because I've changed. Talking about change, I've changed over the years and my focus is different. And I don't know how to demonstrate that. And he said, well, what do people say about you? So I said, well, you can look on my LinkedIn page and see what some of the recommendations are. And one of them in particular, probably the last one, really touched my heart. And I said, I would like to be able to portray that in how I market myself. And you know what he said? He said, take that recommendation and put it into AI and see what AI says about you. Whoa, that blew my socks off. Yes, because I use LinkedIn like crazy. It's really an amazing underused tool. And what I want is a very strong statement about me. And even though I'm a seasoned salesperson, doing it for yourself is the hardest thing. So how do I market myself? How do I say about, what my gift and my skill is and what my results and outcomes have been? So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was a great idea. And I haven't done it yet, but I intend to.
And trying to find a niche too. I've used it for that and I keep failing utterly. So I'm too, multi-diversified in everything I like.
Well, as someone who's been a coach for a little longer than you, I'd love to address that. I think that the need to have a niche is largely enforced by people who are selling a course on how to create a niche. And what I've found for myself is that I just like to have my practice stay interesting. And if you find that you're someone who likes to work with this type of person, but also that type of person, and for giggles, why don't we work with the Gen Z person with their checklist? Maybe a niche isn't your thing.
That's a huge thing. Because I adapt based on who I am talking to, because I've been in HR for 16 years now, even though it doesn't show, the whites are deep in there. but that's something like maybe a niche isn't the thing, but I have a barter coaching in about an hour that's to talk about that. Do I need one?
Yeah. And you can choose one and then back off it if it doesn't work.
Niches are highly overrated. I think so. When we're training coaches, brand new coaches, we have the niche only so that people know who to send to them. That's really like if somebody wants to give you a referral, that's what a niche is for. And and to put on your LinkedIn, I coach this kind of people. The former owner of the school had a terrible time with me because they said, well, who do you love to coach? Because that's how you find your niche. And so I said, because they were talking about demographics. So they went through all the demographics. And like my people were all over the place with demographics. And what happened was they started talking about psychographics. Because I had people in my practice that were from like 18, 19 years old until in their 60s and 70s, men, women, straight. It was like everywhere from all different industries. And we started talking about psychographic. And they were all people who were extremely interested in their own growth. They were very spiritual. It was, there were some things, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, yeah, I actually do have a niche, but it's not how people typically niche by demographic. It's really by the psychographic. If that, I see you nodding along. What I see some of you nodding along. What are you thinking?
I Googled it. I've never heard that word.
Does it resonate with what you're looking for?
So it's attitudes, aspirations, and other psychological criteria. Now I have to do a deep dive. You gave me homework, Joanna. Thank you.
And I love what I'm hearing here. And I've played around with niches. I've done Instagrams, taken them down. What I found in 12 years and how I refer other coaches, it's hard when you're starting because it's like, well, or at any point in time is what do I put up for my marketing? How do people know who to send me? And I've had times where it's mostly women, it's mostly men, but I got referred someone the other day that's only in their 20s. And I got referred to, so the person got referred to me, and I like to put it this way bluntly, my background is sales. I'm kind of a Mack truck. That's who I am coming down the highway. And some people really love that energy. It just shows up in every session. I'm the truck, I'm the box truck. And that really works. It's not really about this niche or that niche, but that's very consistent. And people really like that energy, or some people don't. And I refer other coaches. Some coaches have a niche, but that's really, I'm real, the dimmer switch is all the way up. I find that's my niche. Now, I'm not going to put that on LinkedIn, but I think that's who's drawn to me. I get referred over and over again because of that. It's just things up. But that might not work for everyone, but I think that's who comes to me over and over again. So it
I
just
would love to
depends on
see that on your LinkedIn.
Maybe I should put that. Maybe I should put a picture of a truck. But I found that's what's really worked for me. But I've tried all these different niches, and I find that the people that come to me are looking for a certain vibe, and it's really not about women in their 40s or business owners or anything else. It's people that really want to kind of nail it.
It's funny you say that because I've had a very large variety because I do a lot of volunteer with ICF South Florida too. And with We Evolution, one of mine, she's like, I know I have to work really hard because you're going to hold me accountable. And I've never been vicious, violent, or anything. I just ask questions. And she's like, the 2 hours right before I meet with you, I get the most done in the whole week. So maybe I'm the accountability truck.
Well, and I think that may be one of the things that differentiates a human coach from an AI coach. It reminds me of something a client of mine told me I don't know, 12 years ago, that I haunt him. I'm not trying to. I try and kind of personable figure, but just thinking about needing to talk to me, that he will be talking to me, made him, get in action, because he didn't want to disappoint, I guess. We're not going to worry about disappointing an AI. I don't want people to worry about disappointing me, frankly, but people have their worries.
Just had another thought. What if, as an exercise for a client, when you feel it's appropriate, to ask them for homework to take whatever this thing is that they're struggling with and put it in the AI, see what it says, and then we can discuss it on the next call. It's like having a little buddy.
One of my more techie friends that are coaches is Mark Kilby, and his client put all of the transcripts of all of their coaching sessions from all the time that they've been doing it and asked to create an AI bot as Mark. And he tells Mark what his AI bot of Mark tells him to do. And then they argue about it. It's very, very unique. And he's like, is it okay with you? And he's like, just don't share me with other people. But it's a real thing they did. And he said, it'll never be you though, because it doesn't feel the same. So what Gideon mentioned.
That's so cool.
I have a lot of stories on AI.
Oh, wow.
I actually love knowing that comment, it'll never be you. Sorry, let me stop my camera from doing its silly thing. Because it won't. AI cannot be human, no matter how much it mimics us. It's like I had an African gray parrot that literally used to make my cat stop scratching on things because she would yell in my voice. The dog stopped coming because she called the dog so often in my voice and I wasn't there that the dog stopped. Yeah. And I couldn't whistle because the bird could whistle too. So I learned to call the dog by clapping my hands because the bird couldn't do that. AI will never be us.
I see an article in your future.
You know what? I'm gonna
Please
have to write that down. Thank you.
I'll read it.
I'll get AI to start it for me and then I'll finish it. It does great prompts. It just doesn't do great depth.
Right. That we bring the depth.
Exactly. Which is why AI, it's been shown AI can coach at the level of an ACC coach. Because ACC tends to be more mechanical, tends to focus more on the doing, and then as we mature through coaching, my metaphor is that as ACCs, or what not even ACC, but becoming ACC, the new baby coach is like a kitten, very sharp teeth, very sharp claws. It sees an agenda, it leaps on it. Yeah, exactly. And then when as the coach matures, and it doesn't necessarily mean credential level, it's just maturity of coach, that it gets its adult teeth, it gets its adult claws, and it grabs things, but it doesn't hold on as tight. And then at the MCC level, credentialed or not, we're old and we got no teeth and we got no claws and we got no skin in the game. So you get to do whatever you want to do, and we're going to be here to support your being. And you'll never forget it. I did that for Reciproc Coach. I think they recorded it.
Coach, what big teeth you don't have.
Exactly, because when we don't bite on it. Yeah, I'm going to have to go in a minute too. I've got a coaching session at the top of the hour.
Thank you.
Gideon, thank you so much for being here. And thank all of you for being here,
Thank you.
because if you aren't here, we cannot do this.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate everyone showing up. Gideon, this has been lovely.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
See you on the call tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.